Business Awareness Hour with Norman, the Awareness Guy. Now, let's start the show.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Business Awareness Hour. My name is Norman Wasserman. I am also known as the Awareness Guy, and my queen of awareness, Linda Grace Farley, is sitting in her usual throne and just waiting for the show to start. Hello, Miss Linda. What's going on?
Everything and anything, Norm. Life is good.
Tomorrow here, weather-wise, because we always discuss it, because you're in lovely Florida, and I heard you were about 85, 90 degrees today.
No, actually, we got it's cool, 70-some degrees for the next few
Eric,
days.
Eric Jacobowitz, who's down in wherever that is, near Boca.
Yeah.
Said he was about 90 degrees where he was.
He's south. They get hotter weather south.
Gotcha. And our guest is from South Carolina.
Ooh.
We got to talk about this gentleman. First of all, he's extremely well known in the country.
Yes.
He does. He's a speaker. He's an author. He's a consultant. He's an entrepreneur. There isn't too much that he doesn't do. He does so much that he has 3 sample bios.
Well, you got to know your audience.
We have the small, medium, and large bio. So what I'm going to do this evening is go with the middle choice. We're gonna start off the show with the. He has a micro bio, a short bio, a short expert bio, and an expert bio. So
you got to know your audience, Norm.
I'm sorry?
You got to know your audience. So
exactly right. So we're going to play safe since we don't necessarily know our audience completely. I mean, there are thousands of people that follow us.
Sure.
So, okay. So we're going to start off. So if you're sitting there, Mr. Hoffman, get ready because here we come. Matthew P. Hoffman is a sought-after expert coach, national speaker, trainer, and author. He is a widely respected authority on relationships, radical communications, and conflict resolutions. He specializes in presenting these critical concepts in a fun, entertaining strategy to employ that will drive their business success and elevate the most important human relationships. With a diverse background in business, people, and systems, thanks to a liberal arts degree from Middlebury College, which is a great school, and a master's degree from Cornell University, not terrible. And also, where else to be guided? And Matthew is prepared to meet his clients where they are and help them soar in their critical business and personal relationships. His work has been featured on ABC, Fox, and is a regular expert contributor on relationships for NBC's Bloom in the Florida major market. Good evening and welcome, Matthew P. Hoffman. Yay.
What a nice introduction, Norman. Thank you so much.
The show's over now. We're done.
Oh, that's it.
That was it. We get the crowd sucked in. We give them a little bit, and they want more. So next time.
There you
That's
go.
How we build up our crowd. It's always next time. Anyway, welcome, my friend. You really have done an awful lot. And as we discussed, and the way this show is, it's all about is awareness. I'm sure there's a couple of people that do not know who you are. We're going to take care of those couple of people tonight so that everybody, including those couple of people, will know who Matt Hoffman is and what you're all about and how they can get in touch with you. So let's start off upon you going to college and you got out of school. What was your first working position?
I tell you what, you're gonna die, but
I hope not.
I opened up. My first business after grad school was going into the restaurant business. I was dating a beautiful woman who is now my wife of 31 years, and 4 months after we got married, we opened our first 175-seat restaurant, a wood-burning Italian bistro called the Tuscan Oven in Tampa,
Where was it
Florida.
located?
Yeah, that was my first step into that crazy world of restaurants.
Matt, where was the restaurant?
It was in Tampa, Florida.
Well, it's interesting because Linda, her son, has I believe, a very similar restaurant to what you were talking about.
Really?
Well, he's moved into more of a American type of cuisine now. But yeah, but
Where in
Tampa.
Florida is he?
Oh, he's right here in St. Augustine.
St. Augustine. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So whereabouts in Tampa was that? Right in the town? Right in
It
the
was in what we call Soho or South Howard. There's a little
Mhm.
steakhouse in Tampa that's quite well known called Burn Steakhouse. They have the largest private wine collection in the world, and they're a prime aged beef steakhouse. People come from all over the world, and the founder of that, Bern Laxer, I bought some of his property just up the street from his steakhouse, and I raised $1 million and designed, built, and ran a 175-seat wood-burning Italian bistro.
There is
Oh.
nothing like wood burning pizza. We have
Absolutely.
a place here in New York that makes the most phenomenal white pepper and onion pizza in your life you could ever have. It is so delicious. Now I'm hungry.
That's right. I just ate a little dinner. Otherwise, I'd be thinking about pizza tonight too, Norman.
All right,
Oh,
so
for sure.
we'll do it another night then. We're both busy tonight, it looks like. Okay, so you opened up a restaurant. You got this $1 million together. We opened it up. I guess you were now had this pizzeria or gourmet pizza shop for about how long?
Had it for about 6 years. And then I realized we were married and we started to think about a
You
family.
realized you were married?
Yeah, no, I knew I was married.
Oh, I was
But I
checking.
realized that once we had our first child, our first daughter, we have 3 kids, that
Me
I
too.
could either be a great restaurateur or a great father and husband, because restaurateurs work every night, every weekend, and every holiday. So when everybody wants to play and celebrate, that's when we're working. And so that was when I transitioned to my next job, which was working for a senior living company that specialized in independent and assisted living facilities in Florida. And our first one was in Sun City Center. I was hired as the manager of acquisition and development. My boss had some experience in the industry, and we were the dirt dogs who were tasked with finding the sites to build future senior living facilities.
Guess what?
What?
I was the community sales director for 2 buildings for Atria Senior Living, one assisted and one independent.
So you know the business well.
I know it pretty well.
And I learned, and that was back in 90. This was, 90, just before 2000. So 98, 99, that industry was pretty new, pretty young. There's a lot of skilled nursing and a lot of independent living, but people didn't quite know what to make of independent living. And without
they also couldn't understand why it was so damn expensive.
Exactly.
Which was crazy. I mean, I don't know with the Florida market, what you guys were getting down there, but up here it was crazy, and still is nuts.
Yeah. I mean, our model was that anybody that was making $50,000, $60,000 in retirement could afford to live in our community. And 3 months into the deal, my boss and business partner and my father came to me and said, "We don't like the guy that's doing the acquisition job. We're firing him." And they said, "Can you do it?" I said, "Of course I can." And I came home to my wife and said, "I got to figure out how to do this job."
Exactly.
And so, that's where the real learning began. And I was with the company for about 8 years, and we grew from 6 employees to 1,000. And we sold the company after building 6 different communities, each one valued cost to build between 45 and 55 million. And we had a beautiful exit to a publicly traded company.
Nice.
That had senior living all over the United States. And so that was the end of my senior living career.
But it paid off.
It did. It gave me great financial freedom. It was, even though I was I had a small ownership strip in it, which I borrowed to make the investment, but I paid that investment back. And it set me up to do a lot of wonderful things and kind of bring me to where I am today.
And thank God you are, because you do a hell of a job in what it is that you're doing. Linda, what were you going to say?
When you started that was the start of, there wasn't very many of the senior living, campuses down here, was there?
There were not. There was a lot of assisted living because people thought that was the place to be. And as that became more and more regulated, we realized that having independent living be primary and having the assisted living size. So as people aged out of independent, your assisted
Absolutely.
living could stay 80% full from the flow of the people that were living independently. And so that's how we sized our properties. I built some villas and houses and homes and
Sure.
condos. So for people who said, I've never rented in my life, I'm not a renter, we said, fine, buy a home. And you get the same services, but you have your own home or villa or condo. But you still have access to a 25,000 square foot clubhouse, all the amenities and services of any senior living campus around the state. So it was really it was all private pay, high end,
Yes,
you know, but
yes.
Very high end.
but you know, great quality of life. And people, when our residents would move in, the adult children would say, "Where are my parents? They're never home. I can't reach them." And it's because they're having so much dang fun and
Yes.
enjoying life with a few hundred people that are their age with similar backgrounds. And so everybody says, even the residents would say, I wish I would have done it sooner, because the quality of life, didn't have to cook a meal, didn't have to clean their apartment. They were driven to places and built-in activities and trips and travel and parties. And
they used to go to a pizzeria.
Yeah, some of them.
They could. I mean, some of these places, we had the opportunity to visit a few of them, but you're talking upwards to 12,000 a month now down here in Mass.
Oh yeah, there's a model called a CCRC, which is a continuing care retirement community. Those are endowed, and those were much more expensive. I'm sure, Norman, you came across those where people actually buy in with a large chunk of money, and then it gives them the continuum of care through independent, assisted, and even skilled nursing. So they know that they don't have to worry.
Long Island, it's not the same as it is in Florida as far as the surrounding areas and such. I mean, you guys, you got beauty where you are. You know, as much as these are very nice complexes, and you got the amenities to a point, right? But you know, back when I was doing it, about 7,000 to 8,000 a month, just to walk through the door.
Wow.
Just to walk. By the time you got done, if it was assisted living, a lot more money.
Sure.
Independent living, that you could go and come, drive your car, you know, you could do whatever it is that you wish. It was like a hotel.
Yep.
Yeah. So the baby boomers that's why, you know, back in the late 90s, that's when, you know, the medical industry said, hey, look, we have a problem. We have a lot of baby boomers and we're not going to be prepared. So I applaud you for the insight to create the model for something like that, because it's just exploded down here in Florida.
Yeah.
And of course, this is the retirement capital of the country. So
tell us about Gottman Institute programs.
Yeah. So John and Julie Gottman, I call them the godfather and godmother of relationships. The Gottman Institute, John Gottman has a lot of amazing books. I've read some of them. I've taken some of his courses, done some of his training. And he has the scientific backed research, Norman, that really talks about relationships, what works and what doesn't, mostly on the therapist side. You know, most of the people that use his work and program are therapists. I'm not a therapist, but I believe in his training and I wanted to get more adept at it. My wife have done some of his courses, and I even recommend some of his books to some of my clients. There's one he has called 8 Dates. And it's literally, you read a chapter, your partner reads the chapter, you answer some questions, and it gives you the outline of a date to get to know your partner better and to have critical conversations that bring things up that as couples you have to navigate. And
but in 8 dates, you touch everything?
Yeah. I mean, 8 big issues. You don't touch everything in life, but you talk about money, you talk about kids, you talk about intimacy and what it means. You talk about communication, right? You talk about your family of origin, and you got to do a little homework. It's not too bad, but it really helps people explore each other. And even though my wife and I, when we did it, we'd been married, I think 19 years, I still learned a lot about her that I didn't know, and vice versa for her. And so the Gottmans are he's an authority. He's a speaker. He trains therapists, and it's just scientifically backed principles that lead to the most healthy and enduring and lasting relationships.
Tell us about this superhuman power that you have.
If I had a superpower, it
You
would
have a
be.
superpower. You told me you wrote it on a piece of
I
paper.
did. It's
Yeah.
communication. I teach people how to master the art of communication. Norm, in my platform, I have 14 different qualities that go into making a successful relationship. Every successful relationship has to have them to work, and communication's the glue that really goes through all of them. And so, I think one of the issues that people they may say we have a financing issue, we have an intimacy issue, we have a trust issue. Well, it really comes down to communication because
Yes.
most people don't understand what their partner's needs, wants, desires are. Or if they do understand them, they don't know how to best support them in achieving them on a regular basis. And
Right.
so communication is really how you do it is the key to success.
And communication isn't screaming and yelling.
Not at all.
That's talking louder.
You're right. Yeah. Maybe if I say it louder, you'll get it this time. Or if
But
I
everyone
repeat it,
uses that line.
yeah, if
Maybe I
repeat
should talk a little bit louder and you'll understand what I'm talking about.
exactly. And then, when we do speak louder, that's when tempers flare and we usually have
Absolutely.
Oh,
regrettable moments that can do a lot of damage.
indeed.
Now, Linda, you wanted to say something?
I was just going to say, have you ever heard of communication intelligence?
I have. I heard of a lot of emotional intelligence is a big catchphrase today. Communication intelligence is knowing how to communicate based on the scenario or perhaps situation you find yourself in. It's kind of with the way I understand it, and maybe you can tell me if I'm wrong, is picking the right kind of communication, either to serve somebody or to reach a specific goal given the circumstances.
So there's a book, Judith Glasser. She actually trademarked communication intelligence, and it was like a 25-year research project for her. So that would be another one I would recommend, to check it out, because she talks about the reframing and all the good stuff. You can never get enough of communication, though. Information on that, though, Matt.
No, you're right. I would call myself a master communicator, but I have a lot. I don't know it all, and I learn. And just because we know it doesn't mean we're practicing it. Unfortunately, common sense is not common practice. And that's why I have a job.
We met a couple of years back, and one of the things, besides your articulation and how you presented yourself and whatever, and say, I think this guy would be great on my show, and he's a good guy, we could be friends. Okay. Was when you presented your first book, and the title of your first book, I love this, Kickass Husband, Winning at Life, Marriage, and Sex.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, thank you.
Did that make a bestseller?
What a set you have on you to come off with that.
Well, I got to give my wife some credit. I had another name that I was too embarrassed. I won't even tell you what it was, but it was a placeholder.
Come on, tell us, please.
It was called, it was a placeholder, mind you, because you have to have one for a book eventually. It was called The Husband Quotient. And she said, what the heck is a husband? She goes, you don't want to be a quotient. I go, well, okay, it's just a working title. She goes, we can do better. I go, well, what do you want to be? And she said, you want to be kick-ass. I said, well, am I a kick-ass husband? And she said, absolutely you are. So, who wouldn't want to be? Do you want to be good? Do you want to be average? Do you want to be great? You want to be excellent? No. If someone said, Norman, you are a kick-ass podcast host, you'd probably bend your shoulders back and have a smile on your face.
Proud,
yeah. Well, yes, I am. Of course I am.
I would probably, when that happened, I would raise my price.
Yeah, exactly. So
that's what I would do.
It's not a name I gave myself, but my wife gave it to me.
It's
but
great.
The rent is due every day. And so I got to work to keep it.
Well, mine's only due at the end of the month. So now, one of the questions that Linda likes to ask, which she hasn't gotten to yet, and she thinks it's going to be something else than what I'm going to say right now, is that why did you pick this profession that you're in?
That's a great question, Norman. And
see, Linda, I got it. You say you didn't get the great question. I got the great question.
There's two interpretations of the why. And you know this, right?
Yeah, that's coming up. Okay.
Yeah, there's two interpretations, but go ahead.
Okay. So I got into this. I feel I'm in my 31st year of marriage. I'm a rookie. And, I would tell you honestly that my marriage is better than I ever thought it could be. And it is because we are both committed to doing what we need to do to prioritize each other. I'm a faith-filled guy, and I would tell you, and my wife would say the exact same thing. She'd say, God is first, you're second, family, and then everybody else. And so because we have that commonality and that strong faith in our relationship, we've been able to work through a lot of things and handle them based on our faith because it's who we are. And it was my desire when I was able to really take my relationship from kind of okay to excellent and think about what I had to do to get it there. So many people have no idea what, marriage doesn't come with a handbook. At least I've never found one. No. And so we stumble, we make mistakes, we hurt ourselves, we hurt our partners, and we're not really sure what to do. And so my goal is to help men and women that are dissatisfied in their marriages or their relationships figure out how to live the kind of relationship that would be their nirvana, what they only could dream about. And so that's why I got into this. That's my juice. That's what gets me excited.
You know what comes to mind, though, Matt? There's a lot of couples out there who will go to a therapist. Mm-hmm. So coaching versus a therapist, weigh in on that.
Yeah, that's another.
Is there a difference?
That's a good question. There is a big difference. Anytime I give free coaching to people just so they can sample it, because who is this guy and why would I want to work with them? And, that's intimate and trust. So I give a free session out. And when I do that free session, before we jump into an issue of their choice, I say, let me tell you the difference about coaching. Okay. Coaching, and I'll get to the definition of coaching, but let's park that. You said therapy. Therapy looks at the past, looks at history and said, what happened in your past that's affecting who you are today? And we got to address it and fix it. Okay. That's therapy. Somebody who's a consultant is going to say, do X, Y, Z and 1, 2, 3 and call me and tell me what happens. They're going to tell you what to do. Okay. A mentor says, hey, here's my experience. Maybe you can benefit from it. As a coach, I say, where are you today? Let's understand that and how you got there. Tell me where you want to be. And I'm going to give you the tools, tactics, and accountability and help get you there.
Can everything be fixed?
On
the basis, Norman, that you want to fix it, can everything be fixed?
If the commitment is there's really not anything you can't address. I have what's called the 3 C's. And they're the first 3 pillars of my platform. It's commitment, communication, and conflict resolution. That's your foundation in any relationship. When a couple comes to me and I say, why are you here? And one of them might say, oh, I want to strengthen our relationship. We're unhappy, but we don't want to get divorced and da-da-da-da. And then the other person says, I'm here because they said I have to be.
Yeah.
I won't
work with. Why do they have to be? They don't,
because sometimes a spouse will say there's going to be a change around here, or there's going to be a real change around here.
Right.
Okay. So they've been given an ultimatum. Okay. Tell me what I got to do. Right. And it's not about doing what somebody tells you to do. It's about doing whatever you need to do for your partner to feel heard, understood, valued, and appreciated.
Right.
If you're going to make it, each partner has to feel they're getting that from the other in a relationship.
And you don't take each other for granted.
Exactly.
I mean, that's got it. That's part of that commitment, right, Matt?
No doubt. Yeah, you got to prioritize your partner above yourself.
Yeah.
Often, you got to be willing to compromise. And we all like to love people the way we like to love them, but we have to learn how to love them the way they want to be loved. Big difference.
Yeah.
That's another good line that you had.
Because you don't know unless you have to talk, right, Matt? I mean, you got to talk.
Yeah, but you have to talk the truth. You can't talk the BS. You got to talk the truth, and you got to talk your feeling. You got to talk with your heart.
Norman, you hit it. You got to be emotionally available, and that means being vulnerable. That means I'm going to take a risk in telling you what I'm afraid of, or what I like, or what concerns me, or where I struggle, right? Or what my frustrations are. I'm going to give you my shortcomings because I'm trusting my wife not to stomp on them and make me feel like an idiot for feeling that way, but to ask me more questions and how can I not to solve my issues, but to listen. A lot of men, I won't say all men because not all men, I don't consider myself one of them. We want to solve and give solutions. Let me get in there and fix it. Let me show that I've got what I need, when all a woman wants you to do is listen, validate, and say you're there with her, behind her, and for her. And ask her, how would you like me to support you in this? And listen.
It's
You
interesting.
hear that, Norm? Are you paying attention?
I hear it too well. I mean, it's like it's like bass drums banging in my head.
Okay, so what's the next question, Norm?
Okay, we want to. I got really interested. Now you talked about how does you set up your program, and then it leads into my next question.
Sure. So when I work with somebody, I used to work an hour here, an hour there, and I found that we were just not making progress, and they were getting frustrated. So I was talking. I just signed a new client today. They've been married for 31 years, and they said, "How do you work?" And I said, minimum of 9 sessions, because at 9 sessions we will have gotten some wins and make some progress, and you'll still see a big road ahead of you. And they've been together for 30 years. And I said, how long do you guys think it takes to turn an aircraft carrier from the time you start turning? It takes a long time. You've been in a relationship for 30 years and created all kinds of habits and actions and things you've done and said. We're not going to undo all that. But if there's habits that aren't serving you, that have been detrimental, we got to repurpose them. And that's going to take time. And for you to win and us to win, if we can work together for 9 sessions, you're going to have enough under your belt to go, look at the progress we've made, look at the goals we've achieved, and look how much more we can do if we stay focused. So I work with people usually a minimum of 9 months, but an average of over 12.
So the 9 sessions, is it once a month?
It is once a week. It depends if you want to, how far and how fast you want to go. I had a client start with me, and he insisted we've got to work every other week, because I just, I can't do every week. After the first session, he said, I'm not waiting 2 weeks. He goes, we're going to go to every week. And he just renewed a new package with me, because he's so excited. He had a financial goal he wanted to make in a year, and it looks like he's going to achieve that financial goal in his business in less than 3 months.
How do you combine the business with the marital?
That's a good question, Norm. I do consider myself a marriage and relationship coach, but the principles I have and that I've used, I'm just getting my certification from IPEC, which is the Institute for Professional Excellence in Coaching. And it's a degree that I've had to put at least 400 hours into. And they've given me a wonderful platform and tools. So the topic is kind of irrelevant. It's up to me to use the tools in the right way to give the client the result they want.
How long did 400 hours take you to do?
It'll be just about a year. Just about a year, because it hasn't been my full-time, but I'd say, my half-time job.
So this is now leading to my next question.
Sure.
You have handled so many different people in so many different areas, yada, yada. We discussed that already. There must have been some very, 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 very interesting stories that you could possibly, you don't have to mention. And actually, if you mention some names, that would be very good, because we'd appreciate that would really boom our ratings.
Yeah.
Since you can't, see if you can tell us some stories. Maybe we can figure out who it was.
I'd be happy to. On the relationship side, I had a female client with older kids, and she was not getting physically abused, because that's never acceptable. Neither is emotional abuse, but she was being emotionally abused in the relationship. And her husband said, I'm fine with stuff the way it is. You want to work on it, you go work on it. And so she came to me saying, what do I do? And how do I go forward here? And I said, well, if you're going to leave the relationship, and that may be that, I'd love to help you save it if it's savable. Mm-hmm. So let me say that's the ultimate goal. But if you don't have 2 people committed, then, you're essentially peeing in the wind, and you got to just make a decision. It might be, without that commitment, you might need to move on. And so I worked with her, and we talked about, you want to be proud and say, I did everything I could, right? And not look back and have regret and say, oh, what if I would have, or if I only, right? And we went through a few of those things, and then it became about, how do I get out of this relationship? Because I have kids. And then how do I get ready for the next relationship that I want and need? And how do I achieve success there when I didn't have it in this first one? So it was and that was working with a woman who left a marriage that was failed and not working, and the husband loved doing everything he did and really didn't want to change. Right. Then I'm working with another couple that has been together for 7 years. They don't have kids. They don't have a lot of intimacy in their relationship. And one of the wife was dealing with a limiting belief because she was modeled as she was growing up what love looked like. Her parents argued, they steamrolled each other, and they each made promises that they never kept. So in her mind, her belief was when somebody makes a promise, they're not gonna pull through, and
Right.
I can't rely on it. And that was having an impact in her relationship today. And so we uncovered that limiting belief. And I said, you know what? When you were a kid, this probably helped you because it helped you deal with,
Absolutely.
I'm not going to believe, I'm not going to take stock because I'm just going to get hurt and I'm going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
And I said, let's repurpose that. You don't need to be, your husband loved you. He's committed to you and he wants to deliver on that promise to you. So let's repurpose that belief. Every time something comes up that says, hey, don't trust him, you say, no. And repurpose that job. So it's encouraging her to move forward and trust her husband because he's done nothing but show up and be there for her. So she got rid of that belief, increased the trust in her relationship, and they're becoming better communicators and building more intimacy. So
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, absolutely.
Before we go to commercial, I just want to ask one thing.
Sure.
I believe I know the answer. What is the difference between intimacy and sex? Can you have one without the other?
You can have one without the other. Absolutely. I would say physical intimacy or sex is one of 16 kinds of intimacy, Norman. And when people say, I need more intimacy, I want better sex, good sex is the outcome of developing all the other forms of intimacy with your partner.
There you go. And on that note, we're going to take a short break and we're going to be right back with Matt Hoffman, the Kickass Husband. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Friend Entertainment USA. My name is Norman Wasserman. I am also known as the Music Man. Let me just tell you a little bit about Friend Entertainment. We put on concerts for charities, and we do that everywhere from New York to Las Vegas. We do R&B, Motown, rock and roll, jazz, whatever it is that you wish. Friend Entertainment will deliver the best of the best for you and your charity. Here are some of the names of the talent that have performed with us on our stage. Stevie Wonder, Tina Turner, The Temptations, Earth, Wind and Fire, the one and only ELO, Elton John himself, Kool and the Gang, and the fabulous Donna Summer. Go to our website, friendentusa.com. That's www.friendentusa.com, or feel free to call us at 631-698-9696. 631-698-9696, and we'll see you at the next show. Okay, welcome back, everybody, to the Business Awareness Hour. I just have to you have to hold on one second. I got an important call. Hold on just 1 second. Yeah, okay, I'll speak to you later. Bye. That was my wife.
Are you serious? Was that really a call?
That was my wife. She wants to know if I could get your phone number and she could call you.
I'd love to talk to her, Norm. No.
Oh, you'll have your fourth, fifth, and sixth book by the time you get done.
There we go. Sounds good.
I just thought that was kind of cute. There you go. That's going to look good on your video.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so now that we got that all squared away, you provide your services, I would imagine, anywhere, right?
I do. Typically I work virtually with people in a Zoom meeting. I love to have physical view contact because there's so much emotion and communication that occurs with body language. Words are just one form of communication. I really enjoy, like we are having here tonight, to be able to see expressions. What people don't say is really as important and revealing as what they do say.
Oh, of course. That's one of my big sales points when I'm out there and you're talking to a potential customer. You can tell by how you shake a hand with somebody, or whether they ask you to sit down, or whatever kind of basic question to get the party going, right? If it's going to work out or it's not going to work out.
Sure.
Energetically, and I go right to the energy. I could sense it. You can sense when you can't. It feels like there's a wall.
Well, that's the same thing as what you see. That's what Matt's talking about. You can feel that.
Absolutely.
Do you have any other interesting stories that you want to share? Because so far so good, and she asked that, so I want to deliver.
Yeah, interesting stories. There's a guy I work with in business, and we were talking about his business, and I kept hearing signs where he was saying, if I ever get there, and I want to, but I don't, he kept giving me a lot of language that told me he didn't feel he was deserving of success. Like he wasn't good enough. So the limiting belief was, I'm not good enough. I don't deserve it. And so we explored that a little bit. And I learned that when he was young, his father left his family, and he had a younger sibling, and he was kind of the teenage guy that was meant to raise this younger kid with no man in the house. And he thought it was his fault because he wasn't good enough, right? So here's something that happened to a teenager. Fast forward, this man is in his 40s trying to build a business, and he's doing it slowly, successfully. And he's got this belief on his shoulder saying, you don't deserve this. You're not good enough. You can't do this. What makes you think, right? And so again, it was a limiting belief that he still had today that happened when he was a teenager. Didn't know it, but we talked about that. And again, we removed the obstacle. And he is on track to beat in the first 6 months of this year what he thought he was going to do all year. And so it's amazing when you figure out what, you go to a doctor if your heart's not pumping right because you got to get the blockage removed, right? Sure. And it can be deadly. And those emotional experiences from our past can be deadly to us and our success. And most people, they just don't know it. And because they're not able to, I have a coach, for example. I am a coach, but I have one because none of us are good enough in understanding what our blind spots or shortcomings are. Sure. And if we do know what they are, we may not know what to do to get out of them or work around them. And somebody else has to help us see that and help us navigate and work through that.
Yes, because sometimes you're too close to the forest, as the saying goes, right? You can't see the trees. Absolutely. So I understand the limiting beliefs because I went through a couple exercises this past year in a class that I've just finished. But how do you, because it's easy to say, because you can identify what the belief is. How do you get them to recognize the belief?
That's a great question and an important one. So when you're thinking about a limiting belief, it can come across in a lot of different ways. And it could be something that you have no control over, that the world is telling you, like this is the story and you're believing it. It could be, you can say, well, gosh, I don't have the money to afford the class, so I can't learn it. Right? So you think I can only learn it if I do this class. I don't have the money for the class. I'll never learn it. Right? That's an external circumstance. So you have internal conflict and belief, and you have external. So kind of the first thing is to understand, where's it coming from, right? And then you have to ask the person, how well is it serving them? How well is it helping you get what you want right now? And if they go, well, I don't really mind it, it's not that bad. Okay, then I'm not going to help you get rid of something you don't think is all that bad. But if you go, I am sick and tired of not being able to do this. Okay. So, and then you ask the question, and this requires a lot of, you could say imagination or belief. And I'll ask them a question about getting rid of it. And they'll say, I can't see a way where I could possibly, I have no idea. This is going to be around my neck forever. Okay. So we do a little imagining, and I say, okay, I want you to believe just for a moment, a future where this doesn't exist. Okay. This limiting belief is gone, and you are living in the sunshine, and the birds are singing, and there's rainbows, and man, this thing isn't even around. Tell me what that feels like. What thoughts are going through your head? What are you thinking? And you create the situation for them I go, even if you don't believe it, like this could happen, let's pretend. Then you ask what emotions and feelings they felt. And you bring that back to today and you say, when else have you felt those emotions and feelings in your life?
Oh, for sure.
And they go, oh, when this happened. Okay, when this happened, how are you able to experience that? Well, because I was doing and thinking this. Okay, so what's keeping you from doing and thinking that right now? And so it's a bit of, I don't want to say reprogramming, but it's imagining the possibility. And there's a miracle question exercise that we go through, and we say, okay, imagine you wake up, and when you went to bed last night, this thing was so real, and you said, I'm never getting rid of it. But when you wake up, it's gone. You can't find any sign or trace of it.
Yeah.
You're sitting here and you're without it. What's the first thought or emotion that goes through your head now that it's gone? And what they say right then and there gives you the reality that they can start living in without that claim. And you say, what's one small thing you can do? What can you commit to continue that emotion in your job, in your relationship? What positive step can you take with that new thought? Because the old stuff's gone, right?
Yes.
What's one step? Just one step. And then you work on building the steps so they become a habit and they become repeatable. And then the reality appears and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm living without that thing I thought I could never be without or be free of. Could be addiction, could be reacting in a certain way, could be disbelief. It could be so many things. And so people don't know what they can have until you help them dream about what it is.
Well, they don't realize right. They don't realize what you're trying to do for them. They don't get it until, like you said, they get a little taste.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that taste starts to grow. What's the difference, may I ask, between therapy, consulting, mentoring, and coaching?
Yeah, well, we touched on that a little bit. So, mentoring is I've had a lot of experience and I'm going to share my experience and maybe it'll help you. Okay. That's mentoring. Therapy is, wow, let's look in the past and see what happened to you that was never addressed, that's lingering or hanging around, and see what we have to do to undo it or correct it so you can do something today. Okay. Consulting is, hey, Norm, do these 5 things and your problem will be gone. Do the 5 things I tell you, right? You have no stake or stock in it. Yeah. Coaching is like, Norman, where are you right now? Let's understand that. And then you tell me where that ideal place you want to be in the future. And then I'm going to give you tools and I'm going to give you accountability, goals, and action plans that are going to help you get there. I'm not going to get you there, but I'm going to give you the path that you can follow in order to arrive where you want to be and where you want to live.
You really can't get them there, but you can lead them down the path.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So as I see this, and it's because when you're in the field, right? You are all of the above. When you look at it, you're the whole picture versus, because everything you do is a part of that. Every one of those identities, archetypes, if you will, you're the whole picture. You don't segment off. Mentoring, you're giving us stories. Right? This is what worked for me. So engaging with an individual or a couple, you are using all of those aspects of those identities in your practice.
I am. And let me give one careful distinction or clarification is that the one thing I don't do as a coach, or my goal is to not do, is to get in the box with them. I don't want to get in their problem and live it with them. It's because then I'm admitting it's real. That's their reality. So when someone says, my husband doesn't listen to me, he talks over me, he doesn't respect me, yesterday he did this, and then you know what he said? He did this, and oh my gosh, can you believe this is what he did next? And let me give you all the examples of how he failed me. And I can get in and go, oh my gosh, that's terrible. Oh, Linda, why would someone ever, why? Oh, I'm in the box with her. Okay.
But that's what, in your field.
Yeah.
That's the taboo. You do not get into that. But you got to wonder, the therapist and the counselors and everything else, right? how many of them are staying outside the box, or they're jumping into the sandbox with them?
Yeah, it's, a lot of
See?
people want to commiserate. I think, therapy has its place. If someone was sexually abused and they come to me and
Oh,
they haven't dealt with that,
yeah.
I'm not trained and equipped to help them navigate that in the most effective way. And I'll say, you know what? This is, or addiction issues or a death, whatever it may be. And I can say, you know what? There are people that are really trained specifically to help in that. I can still coach you, but I would highly advise, let me give you some referrals of the right tool, the right person to help you put that in the proper perspective. So it doesn't, and if you're able to get that and do that, come back to me and I can help you go forward on all these other fronts. So there may be, therapy might be needed. And I'm not a therapist, but, I can coach. It's not that we don't look at the past. It's just that we're not looking to the past for the solutions to today.
Right.
Saying, where are we and why are we here?
Yeah,
Do we need to drop some stuff or get a little leaner, uncut some chains that are weighing you down? Maybe. Yeah. Let's lighten the load so you can go forward.
Because you gave an example where you're bringing somebody into a storyline, using their imagination, right? That's your creative, that's your right side of the brain, right? So then all of a sudden, when they came out, oh, I remember that happened then. That is kind of like what it would take, how many hours with a therapist, because they're looking for that. And just you, with what you're offering to them, they were able to get there with no help.
Yeah.
You see, that's the beauty of what you're offering.
Thank you. Well, we're trying to build on, everybody's had success, even though they may think where they are right now, they're not, or they're never going to win. But if you find that success and help them uncover what was going on when they felt that way, let's recreate that success here. And
because the brain is a beautiful thing. If you say, if they say, oh, wait a minute, I remember that, the brain wants to dump that garbage. And that's what you're doing by helping them to imagine a better way of being.
Exactly.
Not
Right?
all the time does somebody think it's garbage. They really believe, and they shouldn't, about certain things. I mean,
what I'm saying is about the garbage is they're holding on to this baggage that from many, many years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
So why? It's taking away from a life that you're here to enjoy.
Sure.
What is a typical experience like for someone who chooses to work with you and your coaching programs? How many different programs and such do you have? Or are they individualized to your situation?
It depends on what their needs are. And I think that, there's a tool I use called the Wheel of Life. And depending on what people want to focus on, maybe they want to focus on their leadership skills in their business. Maybe they want to focus on a specific relationship. A couple I was working with, I did the Wheel of Life on relationship. It's 10 qualities on a wheel, and they rate themselves. I go around and I say, all right, one is I'm horrible at this. I'm not satisfied. 1 is I am totally dissatisfied with how I'm doing in this area. 10 is I am hitting it out of the park. I couldn't be happier. Then we go around and talk about 10 key relationship qualities: intimacy, communication, commitment. They self-rate. Okay. And I do it with both couples, both people in the relationship. And then on the screen, I say, okay, you just gave me points on 8 items. I'm going to connect them all as if I'm drawing a wheel. Look at your wheel. If we roll this wheel down the hill, what's going to happen? Most people go, it's going to flop and fall over. It's not going to be bumpy. And I say, why? Well, because in these 2 or 3 areas, I scored really low. Okay. So which area do you want to work on first to make your wheel smoother in your relationship? Right. And so they're telling me this is what I need to do.
Yes.
And then I say, I'm going to help you get there. But I didn't tell them, Linda, you're a terrible communicator. Unless you handle this communication, you're going nowhere in life. Right. They told me, man, if we had better communication in our relationship, it would be a heck of a lot better.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we say, well, what does that look like? And they say, well, right. And then I help them define what they need to do for each other, and then give them tools to start demonstrating in their relationship. And then I say, what are you going to do this week? How are you going to apply what you learned in our time today? And they say, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. First time in the next session, I say, tell me something good. What happened? Give me gratitude for the work that you and your partner have been doing this last week, and tell me about it. And I did that with a couple that I'm working with. I had been for a few months, and they said, well, we didn't really get to this, and we didn't really get to that. And so, I said, listen, I can't make you do anything. But I asked the husband, I said, is there anything that you're more committed to than your wife? He goes, no, absolutely not. I said to the wife, I said, is there anything you're more committed to than your husband? She said, no, absolutely not. I said, then why didn't you at least spend 10% of your time to get 100% of the results that you need with the person who's most important in your life?
Well, were they able to answer it?
Help me understand. And they did. And they said, oh, that's why we didn't want to share that with you today. I go, I'm not here to beat you up and make you feel bad. I don't need 100% of you.
No.
If you give 10% of the time that you have in a week, you'll get 100% of what you tell me you want. How's that for an exchange? And most people go, that is true and totally reasonable and something that we can do. I go, of course you can. You just have to prioritize it, and then we'll get there.
Now, you brought up a couple times when we were talking about, I think it was the limiting beliefs. I love the terminology, repurpose. Explain that to us. What is repurposing? I call it reframing.
Yeah, reframing is part of it. So
I like that term, repurposing.
Yeah, well, when you've had, a limiting belief is usually so full, Linda, of catabolic energy. That's negative. That's anxiety. That's stress. It's victimization, right? And our bodies, like fight or flight, we're meant to get dopamine to do something, right? Move, get out of here, run away from the saber-toothed tiger. But when you're not that, people get adrenal failure and fatigue because they're living in a state of constant anxiety and they can't get out of it. That is not sustainable. Yes. So the goal is to say, how can we become more anabolic, more, the hormones that are released in making love, you got dopamine, you got oxytocin, you got vasopressin. Those are the feel-good hormones. And if you had them all the time, you'd feel good and you do more and do more and do more and do more. So it's like, okay, what do I have to do? What activities do I need to engage in to have more of the anabolic energy in my life? And that's what I work with people on. So those limiting beliefs get you caught in that vortex of losing, failing, fighting, flight, all those negative elements. So it's really about reprogramming, and your brain is so used to it because it's been doing it forever. If it's a limiting belief or failure, why would I try? I'm just going to fail again. I've always failed before, right? You get all those kinds of things that start coming up for people.
So when you say repurpose, what would be, if one of your clients, you address this and you say, we're going to repurpose that. What would be your homework for them to repurpose?
So it's called, when there's a block, I would call that a block. So something is blocking your good energy, right? And the first thing you have to do is recognize it, right? In other words, we got to recognize that this is unproductive or unsupportive behavior. So are we on the same page? Do you agree? Oh yeah, man, I need to, yes, it's unproductive and it's negative. Then you got to explore and raise the client's awareness around the thoughts, the beliefs, and patterns that created it.
Yes.
Was it protection when I was younger? Was it because I was getting abused? How did it get created, and what was its purpose? Okay, that's the purpose. Now you got to create a new purpose. Well, how is that purpose serving you today? It's not serving me well at all. So would you agree it's time to lose this and not? Yeah, I want it gone. Okay, so when the thought comes up where this old belief would come in and tell you the story it told you to protect yourself, what can it tell you now that's going to help you get what you want? You're enough, Matt. You matter. You deserve this. You were built for this, right? It's the opposite belief of the message that the gremlin was telling you, that you're not good enough. You're not smart enough. You're not good looking enough. You're not rich enough, right? You're not strong enough. Whatever whatever the belief is, you repurpose it and say, what's the opposite of that? What's going to help you do what you want to do? And how are we now going to create actions that are going to demonstrate that in your experience? And are you going to how are you going to do them this week? And I have them name it. One of my clients named their gremlin Beans. She said, I'm going to call it Beans. I said, okay, when Beans come to try to tell you that, I say, no. You gave Beans a new job. That's the old job description. Let's jump to the new one. And Beans is going to only tell you instead, absolutely trust your husband. Absolutely, he's got your interest at heart. You can count on him because he's always delivered for you. So the new job is telling you the positive, correct message, not the old debilitating one.
Okay, before we leave, because it's getting close to the hour and it just flies by.
It
and
does.
I have so many different notes here to ask you. And I'm frustrated. And okay. You've been married now 31 years.
Yes, sir.
And the expression, and we never had a fight.
Oh, no, we've had plenty.
Oh, okay. My question is, how did you handle it? Do you go to somebody else and talk to a coach that's similar to yourself and get that out? Or how do you work it out?
So the best thing, I was dealing with a client just today and we're talking about conflict. And I said, there's two easy questions to ask. Conflict, when you see a flare go up on a ship, what do you think?
Danger.
Danger. Okay. Conflict is the flare going up. And if your partner shoots it, it means look out or distress. I need help. So when conflict arises, it's not get up and get ready to fight. It's put your hands down and lean in and say, why is this so important to you? That's one question you can ask.
And then
or what's your ideal outcome? What would you really like to see happen here? And then what would you like me to do to support you in that? Because you can't have love and gratitude and fear and anger at the same time. You can't be angry and full of gratitude at the same time. It doesn't work. So when you diffuse the conflict and lean in and say, you know what? I did make a mistake. You're right. And I'm wrong. And you give a genuine apology. I teach people how to do that too. How you can't fight with that. You drop the rope. There's no more.
Got to be a way to say you're sorry. If you really are sorry.
And then how can I atone for it if I did step in it?
Right.
And I'm going to commit to not doing it again. And what can I do to make it up to you so I'm serious about this?
Now, there are people that do what you do. I would tend to say, and not go out on the limb, but go out on the limb that they don't do it better. Okay, you're really. Be quiet. You set the standard in my eyes of what someone in your position should go and do. Yeah. Why should people come to you and for you to help them? Reach out to the people out there and let them know what makes you tick.
Yeah. I mean, if you're sitting there thinking things can't get better, there's not a solution, there's no way out. I've done this for too long. There's no way there could be a different story. I want to tell you, you're wrong. And I can help you get there. I've done it. I've done it for myself. It's a self case study. After 20 years of marriage, I was not where I wanted to be, but I was able to dig deep and reevaluate and do the right things. And I can teach you to do it as well. If you're committed and your partner's committed, there's really no reason we can't get you to where you ideally would like to be living.
And if you can do all of that, how do they reach you? How do they get in touch with you?
They can go to my website, which is MatthewPHoffman.com. They can call me. My phone is listed up there at 813-477-5589. And, I said this before and I'll say it again, Norm. I give a free coaching session out to everybody because until you know me, you can't trust me. But once you see I can work with this person, he knows what he's talking about. And darn it, if we didn't make some progress in this little time together, imagine what we could achieve if we worked together on a regular basis.
That's why this is the awareness hour. No joke. That is what the purpose of this particular show is. You're going to hopefully meet a few people, not a whole bunch, whatever that really need your expertise in the different areas that you do. And I thank you so much for being on the show. You were great. You were a great guy. We had a lot. I mean, I had a lot of fun.
My
Serious
pleasure.
and fun.
Thank
It was
you.
really, really great, and I appreciate that. Hang out for a while. We're going to say goodnight to our guests and tell them about tomorrow, but don't go away.
Okay.
Whoa. That's a guy who knows what he's talking about, what do you think?
Yeah, him and I can have a long
Oh, you
conversation.
have a lot of conversation with everybody, so.
No, what he's doing is exactly what I've been doing.
Well, then I guess you have something to talk about.
Yes, we do. And he's
And
got
we have
31 years, and we just celebrated 50.
50, 50?
Saturday was my 50th.
God bless. How wonderful.
Yeah, so he's speaking truth. He's authentic, and that's what you don't get too much.
And I've had an hour without an argument with my wife. Of course, we've been here. Anyway, I'm only kidding, folks. Tomorrow night, also a very super guest. I think he comes to us from Mexico, from New Mexico.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
so that's another state that we're going to hit. So we're climbing, and I appreciate all because of you folks that tune in. So we'll see you tomorrow night. Have a wonderful evening. Good night, everybody.
Good evening. Take